Start with LSU camp, and Coach O yesterday had his midweek of media availability. Normally, has that one meeting with the media during the week, and then after the preseason game as well. Incidentally, the Coach O show probably going to get started here fairly soon. You said 16 days out, and that's going to crank up and be weekly, so you'll hear plenty more from the head coach. But this was Coach O yesterday. This is number one. Casey, after the practice session, talking about the week so far and where they go from here.
We put in short yardage. Yesterday we had a tremendous scrimmage. Our guys were very spirited. We put in goal line today. We're going to scrimmage it on Saturday, preseason game number 2. We're on full pass back-to-back. This is probably the toughest part of camp these last couple of days. Our guys did a tremendous job of responding. The leadership on the team has been phenomenal. I thought Ali Gay today had a tremendous day in pass rush. Yesterday, those 2 young running backs really showed out. Both of them had excellent days. They're going to be tremendous players for us. Our run game is coming along with our RPOs and our play actions. I think our team is developing very well.
So, toughest part of camp is honestly the biggest thing I took of that, and they were in pads 2 days in a row and hitting 2 days in a row. And I want to talk about that because I think everybody knows, injuries have been a fairly big part so far of LSU camp. Derek Stingley, Coach O said yesterday he's going to need another week, which, you know what, that's fine. I'm good with that. Just make sure he's healthy because you didn't have him a lot last year. And when you have Derek Stingley, this is going to sound stupid and super obvious, but that automatically makes your defense better than last year if you can get him out on the field for a full season. Ty Davis-Price was back at practice in a no-contact jersey, but Coach O did say he tweaked his injury again. That's just something they're going to have to monitor throughout the year. So injury, we all know about Glenn Logan and whatnot. Injuries have been a big part. One spot they've been maybe the biggest part so far is really one, Mario, where I don't think LSU can afford them at all, and that's the offensive line. Coach O talked about the offensive line injuries becoming a concern yesterday. This is number 11.
We have some injuries, especially on the offensive line. I got to keep them healthy. And, you have to push. You get at a point right now, you have to push. And you have to be out in the elements, and we have to scrimmage. But we got to get our guys game ready also. And it's a fine line. And you had that point of camp where, as a coach, you want to be hard and you want to push them, but you want to be smart and pull off at the right time. So I think it's a fine line. I do believe that tomorrow we're going to be only in helmets. Today, we hit 2 days in a row. I'm going to give them a break tomorrow. We'll give them a break Friday. I'm going to see how healthy we are on Saturday, see how the number of plays that we can go, and maybe limit the type of scrimmages that may cause injuries to offensive line, like goal line, short yardage, and limit those guys. Maybe just have teach periods then and just adjust to the injuries that we have.
And Coach O was asked a follow-up. This is going to be number 12, Casey. He was asked a follow-up about who is it exactly who's hurt on the offensive line.
There's some nicks here and there. Anthony got just a little lower extremity injury yesterday. Is probably going to be out for about a week, but we think that all our offensive linemen are going to be back come game time. That those guys that had some nicks and some bruises, I don't see anyone out for a length of time that may not be ready for UCLA. Maybe one only, but we're going to find that out in a couple of weeks.
That's good news, I guess, depending on who the one only is. But I could definitely see how it's being a concern. And I like the first soundbite, Coach O. Maybe it's time to dial it back a little bit now that we're 2 weeks away from the first game. Don't need any more people getting hurt, especially not at that position.
And he said, you're at that point of the camp where you have to press and you have to get through it. And I'm all for that. But, he mentioned Anthony Bradford there. Well, Anthony Bradford was already, starting to run with the ones to fill in for Chasen Hines, who's hurt. And Garrett Dellinger was not at practice earlier this week and again yesterday. And look, that's a guy who they've praised and praised and praised. I know we've talked a lot about the offensive line, but I say forget safety, forget linebacker, forget the second wide receiver, forget all of that. There's no group that should be watched more closely the rest of camp than the offensive line. Every player, Mario, every coach, every media member, anyone, whenever you've talked about the offensive line to anybody, it's always been about improving communication and continuity. And it's tough to do that when guys are constantly in and out of the lineup.
Yeah,
we all heard about the scrimmage. It wasn't a good day. And you might say, well, yeah, of course it's, you had injuries. That's not going to help. Right. I get that, but that goes back to the point about continuity and communication between the same 5 guys. And yes, he said it was good news. They all should be back opening week. But again, communication, continuity. Look, I know LSU is favored to win this game against UCLA. I think LSU is going to win this game against UCLA. They're a better team. But UCLA returns 10 starters on defense and has a very good front. I know it was a weird season last year. I know the Pac-12 doesn't get respect. That's fine. But they led the Pac-12 in sacks and were second against the run. This is going to be a very good first test for an offensive line at LSU that is expected to make a big jump from a group that wasn't very good last year. And you have 4 of the 5 back. And now this group's just had a very interesting camp. So I think it is concerning. I think you need them to make that jump for LSU to get to where they want to go. And the injuries piling up and just, different lineups in camp. Could that serve you well down the road? Sure. But right now, for me, that's the group I'm paying the most attention to. I just think communication, continuity, that's the 2 major talking points for the offensive line this year. And when you're constantly having just different guys rotate in and out because of injury, I think it gets tough to achieve that.
I agree, and that's going to be tested from the first game. And look, LSU is going to see much better defenses than UCLA's. That just is what it is. They were very aggressive, but they also gave up more than 270 passing yards per game, which was second worst in the Pac-12. That being said, they're going to try to get after Max Johnson in this first contest. And all those things you're talking about, continuity, communication, they're going to be tested from the very beginning, especially from Liam Shanahan. I'm going to be watching him up close because apparently he's one of the few guys that is totally healthy. He's coming back for a second year after transferring from Harvard, trying to try his hand in the SEC. He's going to be a very important player, and I think I'm starting to feel a little bit better about the running game. You heard Coach O praise it there. I think TDP and Emery are both going to be super motivated given all this talk about the young guys, and then the young guys are going to get their snaps as well. Again, that's a huge key to the season. That's been my key to the season for a long time. But I told you this before the show, it's starting to feel like LSU's season will kind of go as its pass protection goes. It's starting to feel like if LSU can keep Max Johnson upright on these big plays, and the Tigers can kind of get to where they want to go this season, New Year's 6 or whatever. But if they don't, then look out, because that can be a glaring weakness, and that could be a problem from the onset against a very aggressive UCLA defense.
Coach O, and it could be. Speaking of injuries as well, I think the most notable injury on LSU is obviously Myles Brennan. And Coach O was asked yesterday if he could provide any kind of update now on a potential timeline for Myles, whether it be when he's going to be able to get back to work and ultimately when he could potentially return for the LSU Tigers.
I don't want to say that prematurely. He's just getting over the pain. He's just getting able to where he's coming back around. Obviously, it was emotional for him. I think they're going to try to put the pads on him as soon as he can. Maybe starting throwing the ball, I don't know, a month or something. But, I'm not in a hurry. I'm not going to rush him. I want him to be ready. I was told he better come back sometime this season, as early as, mid-season, as late as open date, Alabama, something around there. But none of that's definite now.
The Alabama game is always one that gets tossed around, and it's one that's been tossed around with Max as well, Myles, when it comes to him returning from the injury. And look, obviously, we don't even know if he's going to come in and probably be the backup, right? If Max Johnson's in Rise, rocking and rolling, there's no reason for anything to happen. Coach O felt very hesitant in trying to name a timeline there, which tells me that they are very uncertain as to where. I know the bye week in Alabama game is always going to be tossed around as the point there, but hearing that, do you kind of just operate under the assumption that Myles is pretty much out? I didn't do that hardly any when we were talking about them battling quarterback. Now that Max is just the starter and I'm having to talk about Myles Brennan's injury, I mix them up all the time. Are we just supposed to operate under the assumption that Myles is out indefinitely?
It's all good, man. I did that last show. Haley got on me for it. But yeah, I think that kind of makes sense. And it's obviously a little bit different than last year. It was kind of unprecedented with the oblique injury that Myles suffered. But you might as well go forward with that. And I think the only question that would be brought up, and I think the answer is no, but has Garrett Nussmeier shown enough in these scrimmages to maybe surpass Myles Brennan as a second-string quarterback? But that being said, regardless of what your answer to that question is, I think whatever value Myles can provide, he can still provide right now, wearing street clothes, whether it be helping out Max, or, holding the clipboard, whatever he needs to do. And yeah, I mean, I'm starting to kind of feel that way, Musso. We'll see what happens. But either way, you still feel really bad for Miles Brennan. Even if he did not win the starting job, it would have been nice to see him at least compete for that, and then Max Johnson eventually be named the starter. But yeah, I agree. It looks pretty hazy with that situation as far as Miles Brennan goes in this injury.